fantastic today. This is not going to be a typical video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the very endgame project that I have prepared for, upcoming weeks. I'm going to slowly but surely be progressing towards this character. I do not have this character yet. This video, we're going to be only talking about the PoB I have prepared. Frankly, I had this PoB prepared for quite some time now. I started working on this character and a similar concept even before I started streaming PoE at all. So it's been quite a few months ago. But it is time now, I guess, to go for an endgame project and start working toward this character. This character might be, correct me if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments that I'm full of ass, like whatever insult you can figure out, but this might be the tankiest character in Path of Exile ever. I've never seen a character that has close to even close-ish to 10 million max hit when it comes to elemental. The physical is going to be obviously much lower, but we're going to talk about that. The physical hits, generally speaking, in this game do not tend to be that scary, and definitely do not tend to go over something like 50,000. So I think we're going to be fine when it comes to that. But when it comes to elemental max hit, I have yet to see something relatively close to this. This is a Transcendence int stacking. Well, how to put it properly? This is going to be an int stacking, armor stacking, aura stacking Trickster. And the general idea of this character is not the damage. The general idea of this character is to go into virtually any voided Valdo map you can imagine and not care in the slightest about something's gonna kill me, right? That's the idea. I would feel even safer to call that exactly that if my fizz hit was about 150,000, but there are ways around that. I'm going to show you, because this is not like an end game. I mean, it is an end game PoB, but it's not like super optimized. I only started doing adjustments to it yesterday. Excuse me, 2 days ago on stream. So there is room for improvement. You could possibly, I'm pretty sure, increase that fizz max hit to 150,000, and I'm going to talk about the changes, potential changes later. That being said, I'm going to drop that PoB, of course, for you guys. You can check it out. You can tamper with it any way you want. For 2 people that will be able to afford this build, probably, feel free to go for it. For other people that just want to see that as an experiment, how hard you can push character in Path of Exile, feel free to do so as well. Path of Building is arguably my favorite game. Path of Exile being the second one. So, I mean, there is some truth to it probably, but let's jump into the build. So first of all, how are we scaling defenses? So I decided to go for an intelligence stacker because you can get a lot of stats and a lot of different things from intelligence. So intelligence by default gives you 1% energy shield per 5 intelligence. That already means that with this amount of intelligence, we have 640% increased energy shield. And of course, this number will go higher with additional modifiers, blah, 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 right? With strength also, because we're using Shaper's Touch. Shaper's Touch is giving us 45% increased energy shield. There's probably something on the tree, like over here and stuff like that, right? Additionally, intelligence gives you a defensive layer. If you stack it hard enough, it gives you a massive defensive layer, which is less damage taken per intelligence on your chest. This is absolutely huge, and I wish I could push intelligence even further. We're going to talk about it later, because you could probably get 3,600 intelligence if you really wanted. If you had 15-20 mirrors, then you could do that, and you could get flat 20% less damage taken for everything, for elemental, for physical, for damage over time, everything. This stat is absolutely insane on stat stackers, and stacking intelligence works perfectly here. Additionally, we're using this node over here that not many people use, increased evasion rating per 5 intelligence. That alone, as you can see, the amount of evasion from intelligence I have is almost at 900%. So we're stacking intelligence, we're getting insane amount of energy shield, and as opposed to most armor stackers, they usually stack 1 resistance or something like that. They get end game 1,000 fire resistance, and they get 1,000% armor thanks to that. We're just doing that through intelligence. And intelligence is one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is Shaper's Touch, because that gives us 2% evasion rating per 10 intelligence. So in total, that is 2% evasion rating per 5 intelligence with this mastery. That is absolutely huge. And this way, we're getting a lot of armor, because additionally, we're playing Trickster. Trickster has very easy time getting very solid amount of evasion and energy shield, and evasion, of course, gets converted thanks to iron reflexes. And at this point, I decided that, you know, we're going to try to stack as much armor as possible, and that's going to fix our damage as well, because we'll be using a replica Dream Feather. We're going to talk about damage later. But to stack this amount of armor, of course, the intelligence is one part of the equation, and then I started kinda stacking armor, stacking aura effect. It's not that much. This build is going to have about I don't know, 100, maybe 50% overall. You could get a little bit more if you wanted to with some adjustments. That being said, it is enough with Mage Blood, whereas I can say that you know, we just don't need more. With this amount, the Transcendence is going to be working pretty much at 90% efficiency, at 100% efficiency, which is going to be 90% damage reduction all the freaking time. And it's going to be fantastic, right? So all these things combined gives us this. Now, a quick caveat. I have 90% less elemental damage taken here. This is because the PoB doesn't calculate the damage reduction from Transcendence properly, really. This changes if you're going to put here something stupid like 30 million armor, then it calculates it properly. But for the way it is, it doesn't. So basically what you need to do is, in order to see how much your max hit is actually, you need to deactivate Transcendence and remove this modifier, which is not active right now, and multiply that by 10. Why by 10? Because with this amount of armor, with 90 all-res, every time something's going to hit you, the Transcendence is going to reduce damage by 90%, period. You would need to get hit, I believe, by something like 400,000 damage in a single hit of a single element without penetration, in order for Transcendence to not reduce the damage further for less than 90%. 400,000. I don't think that there's anything in this game even that hits that hard, to be honest. You know, you could argue some Valdos, but even then, wow. If you're gonna, you know, if 2 million is not going to be enough, then you're going to reduce damage by 85%. Big whoop, right? So that means basically that currently, as this character stands over here, I have about 8 million fire max hit, about 6.2 million cold and lightning, and basically, yeah, basically that's how much it is. And with Transcendence, if when we select Transcendence, this shows our real physical max hit. This should be right, basically, right? There's few things where PoB you need to add something manually because the formulas and stuff is not going to work properly. This was one of these cases, but physical hit should be about right. I did some calculations and it's about 100,000. So with this amount of elemental hit mitigation, and of course we have very good mitigation against elemental damage over time as well, because we have 90 all-res and we have less damage taken from the implicit on the chest. So, and with this amount of energy shield, damage over time should not be an issue ever. Should not be an issue ever. So with this elemental max hit, you are virtually immune to elemental damage. I cannot think of anything in this game that is going to hit you on this build and is going to drop you, if this is going to be elemental damage, right? That's going to drop you to half ES or something like that. I cannot think of a single thing. Like what? We have Uber, Ether, Beam. Even if you're gonna have the maximum increased damage taken debuff from the laser or whatever that is, that's still gonna scratch your scratch your back. I'm just going to say that instead of saying something else, right? I mean, it's just it's absolutely stupid. And part of that reason why it's going to be so impossible to kill you with elemental damage is the recovery. And this build has multiple ways of recovering energy shield. So first of all, we have this node. We're Trickster. We have this node, Spellbreaker. 50% chance to energy shield recharge to start when you suppress spell damage. This is absolutely devastating because we're combining that with Wicked Ward, And I checked in PoB before. You can see the calculation here. The energy shield is over here. We have 12,000 recharge rate per second. That basically means that you're going to enter a Valdo map, except for the Valdo's map where you cannot suppress spell damage, right? But there are other ways to deal with that. So for now, we're talking about Spellbreaker, right? So that basically means that with Wicked Ward, that that has this line: energy shield recharge is not interrupted by damage if recharge begun recently. That means that as long as you basically keep on taking damage from spells, you're like permanently full energy shield. Like that's just it. That's literally it, right? Like you're going to have this recharge up pretty much permanently, because every time a spell is going to hit you again, 50% chance for the recharge to pop for 4 seconds, for the for the recharge to not be interruptible. And it just goes on and on, right? So you just keep on getting that 12,000 regen per second, and that's it. And pretty much nothing can stop it. If you're going to be getting hit by attacks, there are different ways of getting more recovery on this build. So first of all, once again, Trickster gives us a Soul Drinker, which is going to be 10% leech per second, because that's how much you can. That this is what your cap is with Energy Shield. So basically, that's 3.5 per second, and additionally, what I added here, that will on top of that basically help us in like less recovery maps or something like that, is gain energy shield per enemy hit while affected by discipline. This obviously is going to work even better with Nimis. We do not have Nimis right now because, again, the general goal of this build is to get as much tankiness as possible and basically never have to worry about jumping into a voided map and dying or something like this. But it's there, right? The additional layer of recovery is there. Additionally, there are few tricks you could do. For example, we are only 2 points away from Zealous Oath. So what you could do if you really wanted, you could get Zealous Oath here. You could, for example, get Corrupted Blood immunity from a jewel or something like that, and you could change one of these. For example, I don't know, even this, right? You could change immunity to bleeding corrupted blood from this flask to 3% regeneration. That is going to turn into basically 6% regeneration per second alone. And if you wanted to sacrifice something else, like for example, I don't know, these 3 points and add 2% regeneration over here, there are other places where you could get some more regeneration. Like for example, even this 10 strength node, you could turn that into 0.3% regen from the tattoo. Right? So all combined, for a very little cost, you could get about 10% regeneration per second. Guess how much 10% regen per second is when you have these defensive layers and 35,000 ES. That's 3,500 regen, and you basically no damage over time does nothing to you, ever, including Delve. Like, I don't think there's anything in this game that hits for 3,500 per second with these defenses, and potentially additional physical damage reduction you'll be getting from endurance charges, which we're also going to talk about later. I don't think there's anything at this point. I legitimately don't think that there's anything. Maybe the Cirrus Storms, I think, would hit for a little bit harder than that, but I mean, like, who said that you need to be standing inside of them? You know what I'm saying? Who said that you need to be standing inside of them? So generally speaking, recovery is very strong. There is yet another thing that you could do 100% if you wanted to. I'm just going to change this back so I don't get confused. What you could do is, instead of this titanium spirit shield, which is generally speaking, you're going to see very quickly that this is going to be like about 6 to 10 mirror cost build, but I mentioned at the start that for the 2 people that will be able to afford that, you can check it out, right? But this is just the project I'm going to be going for, so I wanted to show you guys what we'll be working on in the future weeks. That being said, you could do Aegis Aurora, right? And at this point, you're dropping your energy shield to 30,000, big whoop. But at this point, you have 41% block, because we get additional block over here from Unnatural Instinct from these small nodes. Very nice. And that basically means that every second attack almost that you're going to receive recovers all of your ES back, all of it. And less recovery mod does not reduce that. So you block an attack, you recover all of your ES. And we already established how hard for enemies would it be to drop your to keep dropping your ES down with this freaking damage reduction. So something totally you could do. All of these recovery options available to you. If you, for example, see a voided map with no spell suppression, then you could totally swap to something else. If you want to, you can constantly get, like, I don't know, that 10% regen is going to be rather easy to get, and you can utilize that as well. There's so many options to choose from, really, so many options. Once again, the build is not like super hyper optimized. There are some small things that I could improve. I believe even the tree I could improve a little bit. I was thinking about doing the big cluster jewels instead of voices, so I am going to, you know, think about that, and I'm going to, guys, give you future upgrades as future updates of this build as well. But you know, we're going to talk about that in the future videos. Now, why Transcendence? Some of you might be confused. You know, Karn, like, nobody uses Transcendence nowadays. You don't get the physical mitigation anymore, right? Transcendence, in my opinion, is still very powerful if you can somehow mitigate the lack of physical damage reduction, right? We mitigate the lack of physical damage reduction through insane amount of energy shield and other universally very powerful methods of reducing physical damage taken, like Arctic Armor. As long as you don't move, it's 22% less. And you don't care if some monster by accident or something like that, or there's a weird modifier from a ghost from Valdos, will have ignore physical damage reduction. You don't care about that. This is less physical damage taken. The same for this. This is less damage taken, right? So you don't care about anything, right? So your physical damage mitigation should be absolutely fine. I don't know, the only thing that I can come up with that could maybe kill this is like 6k Delve Genix, like the Minotaur boss with like really bad modifiers. But then again, what really bad modifiers is he gonna have? As long as he is converting his damage or like gets additional damage as elemental, he does 0 to us. 0. He doesn't do any damage if it's elemental. Even with penetration, he still has 0. Doesn't do any damage whatsoever. So he would need to hit us this hard with Fizz hit. And I'm not 100% sure if he doesn't have some conversions to fire or something like that. So I need to check that, to be honest. But why Transcendence? I got off track. Why Transcendence? Transcendence is great in my opinion because Transcendence is virtually, apart from some crazy endurance charge stacking builds that gets, I don't know, 16%, 16 endurance charges with Juggernaut or something like that. Transcendence is the only way in this game to give penetration and minus elemental resistances modifiers, to give them a middle finger, basically. This is the only way, in my opinion. That is like really, really good. Because even if you're going to sit in a map that is going to be boosted by the explicit map modifiers, like for example, I don't know, you're going to have a minus 20 tier 17 mod, minus 20 max, with additional 15% penetration. So both that you can roll, right? And they're going to scale to 40% and 30%. So that's minus 70% resistances. So basically almost any build in this game that is not Transcendence or is not stacking endurance charges is just dead. If they're going to get hit by like a big hit, by like a big elemental hit, right? The Transcendence doesn't care because nice, our resistances will drop to like, you know, whatever you want. We still have 90% damage reductions from Transcendence to elements. And obviously, minus max and penetration doesn't do anything to physical. So, like, you know, our physical is just that. We don't need to, you know, that doesn't change ever, basically, right? Unless there's a modifier increased monster damage, but, you know, regular monsters will never, like, have that much physical damage anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, I think Transcendence is still great. It's probably one of the best ways of giving the most dangerous enemies and the most dangerous modifiers in this game a middle finger, like, you know, all the penetration, like penetration from, like, you know, Uber Shaper and like stuff like that, all of that from Atsiri. Like, you don't care about anything, any of this. You remember, we are immune to elemental damage. We don't care about this. We're playing Transcendence. Like who cares, right? So that's it pretty much when it comes to defensive powers. Now when it comes to offense, What we're doing is that stacking so much intelligence is basically, and armor at the same time, is basically a double-edged, I mean, not double-edged sword. It's we're killing two birds with one stone, is what I'm trying to say. Because we are stacking a lot of we're stacking a lot of armor, and we're getting replica dream feather. This way, we're getting a very substantial amount of increased percent damage, which is basically for this particular PoB over here, it's 4.4 thousand. Obviously, at this point, the only thing you care about is you either want to scale either. You preferably want to scale attack speed, crit, and flat damage. Crit is out of the question. There is no freaking way in the world you'll be able to scale crit on a character like this without some gargantuan sacrifices. So I don't think that's great. Second option is attack speed, which we have quite a lot through in many different places, right? So that's a very substantial amount of attack speed. It's nothing too crazy, but it's not bad actually. And flat damage, since we are semi-aura stacking, we do get flat damage, very decent amount of flat damage from Wrath and from Vol Smite. Eventually, if you don't have Vol Smite to use all the time, then you're just going to use a regular Smite for a damage boost. It's not that big of a difference. Honestly, for how tanky this character is, I would say that the damage still turned out okay. This is enough to clear every Valdo map, except for the one that gives you less damage done. Depending on how many items you have, because then you're just going to take away one item, and if it's going to be less damage taken per less damage dealt per item and 100% delirious and ghosted Valdos, then I mean you could still do it, but it's going to take freaking 20 minutes, right? So I mean, if you're gonna get like if people will be selling him up like that with Mageblood for like for almost nothing, because no other build is going to want to like do him up like this, then I guess it's still great profit, but you know what I'm saying, right? I'm going to talk about briefly about some potential options that you could go for, because this damage might look pretty underwhelming. Obviously, for this cost, it is underwhelming, but what you could do if you wanted to increase damage further. For example, you could obviously go dual wielding replica dream feathers, both of them, and at this point you're losing 8,000 ES, but other than that you're not really losing too much, because this shield for the most part is here just to increase your ES, right? Resistance is the easiest thing in the world if you have small cluster jewels to fix resistance. So at this point you could just like put another replica dream feather, and boom, all of a sudden we're seeing at 200 million damage, and that sounds a little bit better. If you wanted to, for example, turn that into like a comfortable 100% delirious mapper or something like that, then at this point you could also get obviously Nimbus, and your ES is going to go further down. It's 20,000 at this point, but this is still one of the tankiest characters of all freaking time, and you're still going to be absolutely fine. And at this point you have 300 million Shaper DPS, right? So at this point you could say that why the hell would you need more damage, right? So you're probably not going to do that when you're trying to do like Valdos or something like that, but this is certainly something, some options. You have some possibilities that you could do. I'm going to tell you even more. Like if you really wanted to, for example, you could change these cluster jewels that I use, and you could use, instead of increased energy shield smalls, you could use introspection. Every single one of them. Of course, you have to fix your mana cost at this point. But at this point, you're still having insane, tankiness, and you're sitting at 500 million Shaper DPS. So, at this point, we're reaching slowly but surely, we're reaching the point where why would you really need more? You know what I'm saying? Like 500 million is easily enough, even for deep delving if you want to, and obviously. Some Valdos, I know that some Valdos take absolutely absurd amount of damage if you want to finish them, but there's some small changes that you could do if you really wanted to. I'm going to put these, I mean, whatever, let's just stay, let them stay. Another thing that you could do if you were thinking that, remember we had 100,000 physical max hit, what you could do, and I think honestly that would be much better, I'm going to very deeply think about that, is for example these Warlock boots, instead of you're gonna have a mirror boots, instead of 20 intelligence you could get something like, for example, +1 endurance charges. And at this point what you want to do basically is you want to get, you want to get a ring like this, which by the way I bought today for, it wasn't even that expensive, like 280 divines. You could try to get a ring like this with endurance charges. And at this point, with +1 from boots, and it will be quite easy to, for example, drop these 3 points, get these 3 points over here for this jewel socket, and get this endurance charge. At this point, you're sitting at 5 endurance charges. And this will give you 20% physical damage reduction at this point. Very handy to have. You know, if you want to push your fizz hit to like about 150,000 or something like that, you definitely could. Another option, what you could do is, for of course, you could use the, I forgot what the shield is, but it's the shield from Searing Exarch that gives you 20% of fizz taken as fire. That is absolutely fantastic way if obviously you don't need more LE max hits, so you're going to sacrifice your 8,000 ES from this shield, and you're going to be getting massive physical damage reduction from this shield. And additionally, I guess you're gonna have like a buffer against like lightning and cold penetration also, because cold and lightning would also get converted to fire, so it wouldn't really be giving us much, but you know, something to add, I guess. So there's so many options. On top of that, for example, if you're going to fix your resistance somewhere else, you could, for example, drop this cold and lightning resistances here, obviously, and craft yourself additional physical damage reduction, or even try to get it, right? I'm not sure if you can get additional physical damage reduction on titanium spirit shields, on ES shields normally. I'm pretty sure you can't. But this is something, you know, even 3% is going to be extra, right? Because a build that is immune to chaos and immune to elements, 3% physical damage reduction is basically 3% less damage taken at this point, right? So something to keep in mind. And yeah, for the most part, I think that's pretty much it. Tell me, guys, what you think about this build, more or less. Of course, I'm going to leave the PoB in the description for the, once again, 2-3 people that will have actually currency to do this. Feel free to do so, and you know, tell me, like, join the stream or something, and tell me how it went. I'm pretty sure that you're not really going to find anything tankier than this in your life. I mean, in your life. Let's not get too far here, but this against elemental damage, you're not gonna find anything tankier in this game right now. Against Fizz, and overall, it's still probably 10 out of 10. But I'm going to try to work on the PoB and try to improve it, just to make sure that even Fizz hits will just not kill us ever. So that nobody's ever that want to run this build is going to waste their 5, 6, 7, 8 mirrors doing avoided Valdo. So thank you very much for watching, guys. See you next time. See you in the next video, which is going to be probably in a few days. Bye bye.